Welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, where today will be part 2 of our interview with Dr. Clinton Lee.
Ladies and gentlemen, brethren all, welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, a casual conversation around Freemasonry. First, it's important to note that our thoughts and opinions are our own and do not reflect those of our Grand Lodge or respective craft or concordant bodies. Please connect with us and ask questions via our website at theworkingtoolspodcast.com.
Today on the Working Tools Podcast, we again have 3/4 of our hosts. I'm Matt Appel. I'm a member of Mill Creek number 243 here in Montlake Terrace, Washington. We have Brother Craig Graham from Kalamalka Lodge number 160 in Vernon, BC, and Very Worshipful Brother David Colbeth from King Solomon Lodge number 60 in Auburn, Washington. And we are honored to have with us again Dr. Brother Clinton Lee. I figure if I do Dr. Brother one time and then Brother Doctor the next time, I'll get it right half the time. So we have Dr. Brother Clinton Lee here with us this evening again. Dr. Lee, thank you for returning to the show. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And I think I should do a plug-in there for my lodges, Aviation Lodge and, Prince of Wales. So
excellent.
Thank you very much.
Are both of those in Vancouver?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you were saying when we ended the previous episode on the cliffhanger, as David pointed out, that the to draw in our listeners to the next episode about the talk you had given and about how the etiquette of the current generation is different, and which I guess happens naturally on some level, right? The etiquette of the current generation is different than the etiquette that I grew up with or that my parents grew up with, and how that is influencing the future of Freemasonry. I tend to get myself down these narrow holes and then end up asking a question like, so how, talk about that a little or something along those lines. So how did you relate to that in your talk before the Grand Lodge of British Columbia?
Matt, I'm going to put spotlight on you now. Can you repeat that question again, please?
Oh, just what did you say to the Grand Lodge in British Columbia and Yukon about the changes in etiquette and how it is going to influence the future of Masonry, or how you see it influencing the future of Masonry?
Okay. When I prepared that speech, I thought extremely hard and pondered on it for quite some time, because Masonry is very dear to my heart, and I've made many friendships, lasting brotherhoods across the globe. Now, if we were to look statistically, and I'm talking just here in the jurisdiction of British Columbia, the numbers have tumbled alarmingly. In fact, they've sort of reached a point where alarm bells are ringing. And I don't think that British Columbia holds the cup for this. I believe that this is affecting many jurisdictions across the world. Now, many of them could be, we have an aging population. So naturally, we're not going to get that increased number. We are having young men who want to join the craft. But when they do, it's not a matter of joining. It's a matter of sustainability. It's a matter of nurturing them. And I go back to a question that Craig asked me in the previous episode about mentorship. But what are we mentoring these young men in? Is it just about learning about the different degrees? Is it a matter of being able to walk around a particular site that we have? I believe it's much more than that. Ask yourselves, and I would put that out to you, the audience who are listening to us today. Simple question. What are we doing to promote, to invest, and to sustain the growth of our craft, given the different challenges that we have, given the different generations, and given that the complexity and the context of Freemasonry is no longer just the domain of white Anglo-Saxons. Not everyone is having roast beef and Yorkshire pudding with gravy on Sunday. That's not happening. You know, you could be having a chicken biryani or chow mein, or you could be having a, you know, let's say a kare kare. We have a huge Filipino grouping, and they contribute an enormous amount. But what do you know? I ask the brothers here today, what do you know about Filipino culture? Because don't think that when you walk into that lodge that they're going to just throw out their culture. They're not. They're going to be bringing in their culture and they want to enhance it. And now, you know, you're having brothers traveling all over the world. You know, when I was traveling in Singapore, they've got a great Masonic gathering venue there, and they've got many different jurisdictions. And when we meet brothers from all over the world. It's stupendous, it's enriching, it's encouraging, it's exciting. And I believe that if we are able to let the younger brothers get that sense, feel, touch, that they are not just enveloped in this small room, this, what we call the lodge, but they are part of a bigger organization. You're going to enthuse them, you're going to excite them, and you're going to have that effervescent effect. But until we do that, my message was, we have to consider culture. We have to consider etiquette of all the different brothers that we are having within the framework of an enabling environment, of a global environment. And that was my message. It wasn't a message of doom and gloom. And, you know, we are reaching the point of being a terminal patient. Not at all. Not at all. In fact, it's one to say, look, maybe some lodges are in ER. Some lodges are, you know, on the Olympic ski run. But as a whole, where do we stand? It's not just a few lodges doing well. We need to ask ourselves, why are those lodges doing well? What are they doing to keep those individuals, young individuals? And if they can do it, why are we not learning from them? And this is what my message was. Embrace it with the structure of etiquette, different culture, and bring a sense of relevancy. So
Now,
I think that's one of the possible avenues to consider.
so I was going to ask then, if we take a step outside of Freemasonry for a moment and look at the broader society we're living in, and especially lensing it through civility, which is another very broad aspect that you addressed much in your life, are we in trouble? I mean, I know that's an ambiguous and open-ended question, but you know, the direction that we're going, especially with very, very recent events, you know, in the last few months and years, I just wonder how you feel about, are we in trouble?
I would be happy to answer that question. Could you give me the particular incidents or places or the time that you're talking about, and I can relate to that to answer your question more.
Okay. So let's go back to, you know, the introduction of these things and the apps that come along with it, and the way that it's changed the way that information is presented to us and the way that we interact with it. That's where I wonder how much trouble we're in. we've been rewiring ourselves basically over the last almost 20 years.
When was the last time many of us read a newspaper?
Oh.
When was the last time many of us had to fill in a form and then we would say, man, why am I doing this? Don't they have DocuSign? Right? It's part of the wheels of progress, whether we like it or not. It is happening, and it's not going to stop. AI is here. ChatGPT is here. We even have, let's be honest, you even have certain brothers that bring their phone or their iPads into lodge. They're not using the black book anymore. They're reading from there. I've even seen certain lodges around the world where you see members with the Apple earpiece, and they use it. Is it wrong? Debatable. It's up to the WM, right? But I do believe that we have to be more accommodating, but have a principle. Canada, that I have always given an enormous amount of respect to, is always that honor system. I think you will relate more to that, Craig, because David and Matt, you're in the US. Is that correct? Yeah. So the honor system. I remember certain stores you go in, you buy something, it didn't work out, you could take it back over a number of days. And now that has slowly diminished to almost only 7 days. And I wonder why has this happened? Why? Because a few bad apples create an entire change in the system. Now, there comes a point that we have to understand what is etiquette to you is not necessarily etiquette or good manners in another culture. So let's say I meet Matt for the first time, and Matt comes to me with a good sense and a good heart, and he holds his hand out to shake hands with me. I could be someone who's never been to the West, know nothing about it, and he brings his hand out, and I don't extend my hand. I will just give him a bow. He's left hanging with his hand. Now, you might say, well, Dr. Lee, that's just, a very simple example. I challenge you, go and look at all these summits, the Apex Summit, the summits that they have. How many faux pas do you see? Most people will go and want to shake, let's say, the wife of an Indian gentleman. She will not shake your hand 9 times out of 10. And by doing so, you're actually being quite rude to them. Or at times, we go and have a meal and we slurp. That's horrific. And you'd say, what are you doing, Matt? Why are you drinking your soup like that? And Matt would say, well, I've just come back from Japan. And I appreciate how I've got to take in the noodles and I suck in the air because that's where I get the retronasal flavor, like you do with wine. So is he wrong? No, I don't think so. But is he right in another culture? Absolutely he is. So when we're addressing certain people, so let us just say it's, Craig, you are now an orthopedic surgeon, all right? So we would address you and we say, may I introduce Craig, who's an orthopedic surgeon? And they would have a title, or you're a lawyer. So in South American countries or Spanish-speaking countries, it'd be advocate. So it'd be Advocate Craig. And that's a sign of respect. One particular consultancy where I was involved in North America, they just address each other by first names. Hey, Craig. Hey, Matt. Hey, David. It's fine. But when you're dealing with other culture, certainly from the East, it's not, hey, bud, how are you doing? That would be an anathema. For them, that is just a huge no-no. So are we in trouble? I would say for the older generation, unless we change and become more flexible rather than like an oak tree, unbending and unyielding, yeah, we're in trouble. But if we prepare to be like bamboo and, the sort of swaying sheaths of wheat and, as they just come about ripe, I think there's a lot of hope because there's goodness in every culture. And what we don't understand, we see as a threat.
I've often heard Masonry is described as being accretive, I think is the word they use, that it has absorbed some different spiritual traditions that in from Western society, and I find it interesting the way you're describing the cultural sort of accretion that needs to happen, where we all where these different influences come into Masonry, and Masonry, instead of sort of as you were describing it, instead of buckling down and saying, no, this is the way it's been for the last 300 years, if we can accrete these different cultures and these different sensibilities into what we are doing, that in turn our message of not just civility but of self-improvement isn't quite the word, but of self-improvement, let's say, and can in turn spread beyond the borders of where it is now.
Absolutely. It will come inevitably. There'll be a changing of the guard. And with the changing of the guard, and whoever's sitting in the East and the WM, they're going to change it. It will change inevitably. It's like the waves. We're not King Canute, that we slashing the waves with the sword. We can't hold it back. It's coming. It's just how we prepare. And that's coming back to your question, Craig. Are we in trouble? It just really relies on ourselves. How do we want to approach this? And if we approach it with what I said, with the pure fundamentals of decency, respect across the board, towards one another, for ourselves, I think that's a very good place to start.
Isn't it not only cultural among nations or among geographies, but cultural among ages as well? As we don't often get folks from other countries that come to our lodge, but we have new men from their own experiences and their own internal cultures, if you will. Maybe they never worn a suit in their life, and now they're asked to maybe purchase a suit or wear a tie. And
yes,
and I know in some lodges they want to elevate that even to a higher standard, maybe a tuxedo, and whether they can afford it or feel comfortable doing that. And so so maybe in lodge they do this and they try to assimilate, but then in the off times, we were just at an event, a parade, and as we were walking, I was thinking, boy, should we have all maybe been in our tuxedos or all in our suits rather than in jeans and t-shirts in this parade, to show a higher standard, as you're describing, as I've read your message. And how do you bring that? How do you raise that level of expectation within a lodge when there's, even in my workplace, I returned to a company that I was at 20 years ago, and they used to have to wear a tie and shirt. And so as out of tradition, I wear a tie every day to work, but now the new generation barely wears a collared shirt. And so how do you maintain that? I mean, in all of your message today and things I've read, you say the word etiquette, and I have an idea of what etiquette is, but what is etiquette? What do you teach? Because you can't always say, oh, you have to wear a tuxedo and you have to wear white gloves and you have to have the fork on the left side. And all. That's not, as you said, it could be chopsticks. It could be something else. Or maybe they've never had two forks in their life on the table. So we've all had our different experiences. How do you?
Absolutely. So your question Just to be clear, can you just repeat that?
Yeah. How do you assimilate these varied experiences that are culture-esque because that's
Okay.
how they were raised and how they were developed?
So let me relate that back a little bit in terms of dress. We have a dress code in Lodge. I think we're all aware of that. And for the most part, many of us follow that. But I've seen places where, members, some brothers don't even wear a jacket. Okay. They dress perhaps inappropriately. But that's not for me to say. That's for the person who sits in the East. But let me ask you a question, and let's look at this from a practical point of view. I'm not saying your own lodges, but have you been to other lodges' festive board? And the festive board is pizza in a box?
Yep.
Let's be honest here. Or, it's some sort of takeout that is miserably disheartening. Now, would you expect the person to wear a tuxedo to eat pizza in a box at the end of a 1.5 hour, 2 hour session? I don't think so. I think the person would wear it once or twice. The festive board is one of the most important aspects, I find, because that's where your brotherhood comes in. People talk about, oh, it's going to cost too much, it's going to affect. Well, yeah, maybe it will. But why is it that when I've traveled to other parts of the world, and I'm sure there's other brothers listening today, though you have a full four-course meal, 5-course meal, there's proper protocols. How do you give a toast? Right? How should you stand? Have your button for the jacket, first button buttoned up. And it's not just for Lodge. Go to any serious business meeting, and especially in Europe. And I challenge you all. Next time you're meeting an Italian, I will tell you the chances 9 times out of 10 they'll be wearing a jacket and even a tie to a meeting. Because to them, it's a sign of respect, not only for themselves, but for you. North American, you walk in sneakers and a t-shirt and you walk up to them and you just say, hey, bud. And they are flabbergasted. What are you doing? So coming back to your question, yes, we have a dress code. And that dress code really is very simple, whether it's a tuxedo or a black suit or a dark suit. That's entirely up to the lodge itself. What is appropriate. But I think where I have visited, I've seen festive boards that are truly extraordinary, remarkable. And then I've seen also, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with pizza in a box, but there's only so many pizzas in a box you can have on a regular basis. And then you're sort of wondering, what are you doing? And I think we can do more. And that's part of etiquette and culture. Because is it etiquette for us to treat our brothers like that within the lodge? Do we not deserve better? These people, some of the brothers are traveling 10, 20, 30 kilometers to come and be with brethren. And we're offering pizza. Sometimes not even pizza, maybe just a cold stale sandwich. So this is all part. From my perspective, we have to make our lodge gatherings relevant, keeping within the framework of what we learn and what we cherish, but adapting it. Otherwise, we're going to lose more and more young people. And it is the young that's going to keep us alive.
Yes, I agree. It seems that it's often the aged Masons, not necessarily aged, but those that have been Masons a long time, seem to not want to maintain some of the standards. Sometimes it's interesting how that shift happens. I've noticed the new men that are coming in are seeking that quality. They're seeking something. Sometimes they don't know what they're seeking, but they're seeking more.
Exactly. And I'm not saying that our more senior Masons, they are treasures.
Right.
They are the gems in the treasure chest. There's a Chinese saying, if you have an older person within your family, you have a real jewel. And that's how I think our older Masons, most of the time, are considered, but not always. And I think getting back to some basic principles that we're a family, we want to learn and support one another. We all know, whether we like it or not, that oftentimes within a lodge, the lodge is not at peace and not in harmony. We all know that. We've all seen it. We've all been through it. And we need to ask, what was the cause? Was it through different approach, different culture, different etiquette approaches? It's always just back to the principles to make a good man better.
Not in your end of communication message, but in the other one that Steve provided to us, that I think it was an address that you delivered to the Civility Council. You provided a picture of the busy city street with the people heads down with their earpods in, and the apocalypse is going on around them, and they suddenly look up and say, "Oh, is there an app for that?"
Right. That's right.
And so how, you mentioned earlier competing with Netflix and video games and podcasts and TikTok and everything else that's out there for their attention. How do we not only get their attention, get this message? I mean, it's this show, this your message, these ideas are like turning the corner on a masterpiece and say, look at this masterpiece. Well, you don't even, and sometimes they don't even know that there's a masterpiece under the brown paper. How do we make sure that they know about the message? And then how do we reveal the message in a proper, I mean, we did a whole series last year, or maybe it's been 2 years now, on whether are we, what was it, Matt? Whether are we coming?
Whitesmith's essay.
Whither are we traveling? Yes.
Whither are we traveling? Thank you. And then I'm losing my references, guys. The book immediately following the
Observing the Craft.
Observing the Craft. Thank you. I don't know if you've read that book or not, but it's a wonderful reminder of elements of what one opinion is about what Freemasonry should be and how a lodge and how Masons should conduct themselves. And a lot of these things are part of that. And so I don't know, we're getting pretty close to the 30 minutes. Maybe this would be another cliffhanger opportunity, if you're willing, Dr. Lee, to hang on and answer my question about what do we do to attract and retain more so. I mean, we talk about this idea of etiquette, but what is it? And you do even provide a couple of examples here. Do this. We've got about 5 minutes or so. Maybe you can wrap it up, but I'm also open to another episode if you're open.
Sure. I'm definitely open to that. So David, 你講乜嘢？我明白你講。Matt, 點解你唔聽我講啊？ Craig, 明白嗎？
My knowledge of the Chinese language extends to Lei Ho Ma and Gong He Fat Choi. And that's about as far as I can go there. Yeah.
I'm impressed.
What a Zhongwen Hen Bu Hao. Yeah.
That's great. Now, the point of speaking to you, it could have been French, could have been Somali or any other language. If it's not your mother tongue, you would not know what I'm talking about. Yes? So what your question relates to, in my interpretation, is communication. We have in our lodge the generation, a few of them left, from the Second World War. We've got a lot of boomers. We've got Gen X. We've got millennials. And here's the point of communication. The older generation, boomers, we like to be able to see. So do you remember in the old days when your parents would say, why don't you listen? Why don't you listen to me? Then the next generation was, why don't you watch what I'm doing? And then the next generation was, this is how you do it. Tactile. So any great learning education will have what we call trisensory. It will audible, visual, and trisensory. You're actually doing it yourself. So let's take that to Lodge. We are expecting generations, let's say the boomers, that's what they grew up with. So for them to learn ritual, not a problem. They know it has to be done. They'll get down and they'll do it. Then the other generation is they don't want to memorize. They want to actually see it. They want to see it. And yes, we can have rehearsals and we can have that. And then the next generation, the younger generation, they have a very short time span. You're asking a generation that lives on TikTok, Instagram, to please learn the FC talk, which is, is a very long piece. Yeah? You try and get people to do that. Why would I even want to do that? So are we communicating in the way that is encouraging, or are we communicating in a way that is creating an obstacle? And I think this is not only cultural now, not only etiquette, but we have to focus within what we have all been brought up in within the craft. Is it a time to consider some changes because of technology? I don't know where some of you have any of you traveled to Asia recently or at all?
Not recently.
35 years ago.
Okay. Well, I can tell you, Craig, it's a huge difference now. And honestly, we're living in the dark ages here in the West. And you're now having all these new immigrants wherever they are in the world. They're coming from different places, different set of routines, and they want to be the best. And they should be. They're hungry, they're young, they're energetic, they want the best for themselves and for those around them. Are we offering them that? And that's what I'm saying to you, is we're saying, no, you have to do it this way. Culturally, you have to follow this way. And this is a huge challenge. So when I said, when I told Stephen, I said, how many times have you walked the street and you see people with headphones and they're looking at their phones, which are glowing? It's like as if they're praying to the gods of Wi-Fi. And that if there was a particular, something happened and the apocalypse came, their first reaction would be, whoa, is there an app for that? And that is true. When people say, I'm not connected, they don't say I'm not connected with Craig because I don't understand what he's saying, or Matt, he says something in a different way or a different, it means I don't have Wi-Fi. So are we going to have 5 bars, or are we going to be challenging and just reducing the bars we have within our craft?
I think that, as David pointed out, is a good place for us to stop and hopefully begin the next episode. Although I will say that what I clearly heard in what you said, this is a running joke throughout our episodes, just so you know, that not what I clearly heard you say was that we need to update the ritual and update the language.
I didn't want to open that can of worms, Matt.
But
we'll talk about it.
We've had this discussion several times. It's sort of a running joke on the show here, but sincerely, thank you, Dr. Lee, for agreeing to be on the show again and speaking with us. And to our listeners, thank you very much for listening. And we're available on all those
apps
that Dr. Lee was speaking of, that YouTube.
We're not on TikTok yet.
We're not on.
We're on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and Spotify and Apple, all those other podcast land and video land. But
so we'd like to hear from you about your thoughts on what Dr. Lee's been saying, and how we can bring this into our lodges. And I would find that to be very interesting to get more people's point of view on that. So in short, Dr. Lee, thank you for being here. And to all our listeners, thank you on behalf of Craig and David and myself for listening to the Working Tools podcast.
Goodbye, and thank you very much, brothers.
Thank you.